Now I'm going to show you how to make one of Billy's arms. We're going to start off by doing a technique called the slip stitch join. And to do that, we need to make what's called a slip knot. So take your yarn, position it so that the yarn tail, the cut off part of the yarn, is to the right, the rest of the yarn's off to the left. Now pick up that yarn tail and then make a loop with it. Now we're going to pick up the right side of this loop and simply fold it over itself so that we have a bit of this pretzel shape. We want to fold it over that long piece of yarn. Now we're going to grab that long piece of yarn in the middle of this loop, hold it with our right hand, and then pull on the yarn tail with the other hand until a knot forms. And it doesn't matter how big this loop is because you can adjust the size of it. So just put the loop on your hook. If you're right-handed, you want the knot to be on the left side of your hook, and if you're left-handed, you want it to be on the right. And then to make the loop smaller, you're just gonna pull on the yarn connected to the yarn ball until the loop on your hook is about the same size as the tip of your hook. Remember, you don't want to make it as tight as possible. So see, you don't want the knot to be right against the hook because then it'll be really difficult for you to pull the hook through. If you did that, don't worry, just wiggle it so that the loop becomes bigger again and you're in a good place. Now we got to figure out where on Billy's body do we stick our hook. We want to put the arms under his eye and in between rounds 11 and 12. So we know we put his eye in between rounds 5 and 6, but in case you wanted to start from counting all the way from the top instead of using that as a reference point, look at the top, look for that small circle. That was the pre-started piece that came in your kit. So the edge of that circle is the end of round 1. And if we just keep on going down the piece, it's the end of round 2, end of round 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. All right, so this is the round that we want to put his arms in. And we want to stick our hook vaguely around where his eye is. I'm going to position it a little bit further back just because I think it's going to look like he's got arms coming out of the front of his body if I put it exactly where that is on this version of Billy that I have here. So I'm going to stick my hook in from the back to the front of Billy. Let's see, this is his snout, this is his backside. And I'm just going under 1 stitch. Now I'm going to take the yarn that's connected to the yarn ball and I'm just going to hold it whatever way I can to make sure it's taut enough so that I can grab it with my hook. It doesn't matter which way. The goal is we just want to bring this yarn through everything. So through both the stitch we just put our hook under and also through the loop that's on the hook. That is the slip stitch join. Now we're going to hold on to the yarn like we normally do. We're going to do what's called a chain stitch. So a chain stitch is simply doing a yarn over and pulling that yarn through the loop on your hook. And you're done. That's the chain stitch. So we need to make 3 of them. That was 1. So here's the second one. And here's the third one. And when you're doing them, you actually do want to make these kind of tight. So you do kind of want the loop on your hook kind of tight. Otherwise, your arm might look holy later. All right, so now you've done 3 chain stitches. And if I rotate my piece, you can see, just like the single crochet stitches, every time we make a stitch, it looks like we've got a horizontal V. So we're gonna do a single crochet stitch now, and we're going to put it in the second chain from the hook. So if we look at the loop on the hook, it traces back into this V. That's not where we want to put the hook. We want to put it in the V next to it. Also notice how I kind of decided to rotate my piece. I was crocheting in this direction and then I rotated it so that I can basically keep crocheting in the same direction that I always do. So if I'm a righty, I'm always crocheting to the left. If I'm a lefty, I'm always crocheting to the right. So we're going to stick the hook, and this time we're going to split the horizontal V. So it should look like you have 2 loops on the hook. Normally when we crochet single crochet stitches in the round or even in rows, we're putting it under the V, but this time because we're crocheting into a chain stitch, we're splitting that V. So all the steps are the same. We're going to yarn over, bring that yarn through just the hole we had put the hook into, so we're left with 2 loops on the hook. Yarn over again, whoops, here we go, yarn over again, and pull that yarn through both loops on the hook. And now we're going to do one more single crochet stitch in the next V, which is over here. And it should be pretty easy to tell where you should put your hook in next, because since you had just split a V, you have a hole probably from where you had made the stitch. Don't worry, it won't be super noticeable by the end. So we stuck the hook in the middle of that next V, so it looks like we've got 2 loops on the hook. Yarn over, pull it through the hole, so we have 2 loops left on the hook. Yarn over again, pull it through both loops on the hook. Great. Now we are going to do a slip stitch in exactly the same spot where we made the slip stitch join to begin with. So this time I'm going to go from the front of the body to the back, and I'm going to do a slip stitch, which simply means doing a yarn over, and we're going to bring that yarn through everything. So both the hole that the hook just went into and also the loop that's on the hook. Then we're going to fasten off. So that's a yarn over and pulling that yarn through the loop that's on the hook and then pulling the hook away. Now we're going to grab our scissors, cut the yarn so that we have a yarn tail still, and keep on pulling that yarn until the tail comes all the way out. And we are almost done here. What we want to do is pull on both yarn tails to make it super snug, and then we're gonna tie a knot, just a regular shoelace tie type of knot with the 2 ends to secure it. And then we're gonna hide these 2 yarn tails. This is commonly how you hide yarn tails in amigurumi. So my tip, by the way, is to cut the longer of the yarn tails so that it's a little bit less unwieldy. And then you thread your tapestry needle with both yarn tails. You don't have to do them both at the same time. I'm just lazy and like to save time by doing this. Okay, so now we want to put the needle in a spot so that we won't be able to tell that we've been hiding the yarn tails. So it should be right behind where you would insert your hook. So I'm gonna put it through this hole and then stick it out some other side of my unicorn. Pull it through. And since I've got some, oopsie, so now you can't see at all, even that there is a hole there. But since I've got some extra yarn tail, I like to do this again. So I put it back in the same hole it came from and out some other part of the amigurumi. Because my goal here is basically I'm trying to tangle the tails, the yarn tails, in the stuffing inside so that nothing will come out. Then finally, I'm going to cut these yarn tails as close as possible to the surface of my amigurumi, taking care not to actually cut the amigurumi. And it looks really clean. I don't see the yarn tails anymore, but if you did, you can just squish your amigurumi around until that disappeared. And here's one of Billy's arm. Now you just repeat that on the other side.